welcome guys to another talk here. Guys, just our second one, but we've got Robby Foley here. So those of you who don't know, Robby is a Turner Motorsport driver, among other things. I think you're entering the fourth season, I want to say, with Turner.
I guess third officially. I started with the team in the middle of 2018. So
that's right.
Yeah, I didn't run a full season in 2018. I was kind of brought in like mid-year. And I did most of this and the sprint races towards the end of the season, but I was full-time in 2019, 2020, and now 2021. So I guess a little over 3 years.
If I recall the 2018 season, I think it was basically you almost never got to drive the car because something crazy would happen.
Yeah,
Bill would get punted.
Yeah,
and crashes. It was just crazy.
Yeah, we had a string of bad luck that lasted quite a long time, actually. We were nearly about to win Mosport in 2018, I think it was. Yeah, 2018. And Bill got taken out by a lap down car. And yeah, we just didn't have any good luck. 2018 at VIR, we were pretty fast, but we had a failure.
Yeah, I remember that one.
It kind of took until the middle of 2019 to get a monkey off our back. We put him to Watkins Glen, then won the next week at Mosport, and then went on a crazy roll there of like 5 podiums in a row in 2019, which was cool.
It's always cool. But let's talk about Daytona first, since that basically it just happened.
Yeah, very fresh.
I mean, you guys finished 6th place, 1 lap down due to I think it was a couple penalties that were incurred throughout the race. Some dumb ones, but that's what you have to live with, really.
Right, yeah. So, go ahead, sorry.
Oh, go ahead. Let's ask you, what were your thoughts?
Yeah, like you say, it was a little bittersweet in a way because I think we achieved more or less our maximum. I don't think we were going to win the race. We didn't quite have the quickest car during the day. At night, we were very fast, but during the day, we didn't quite have what the others had. We seemed to lose the balance of the car as the track temp went up and just didn't have any traction during the day. But in the middle of the night, we were the fastest car on the track, which was fun. Pretty much from my side, it was business as usual. We had a couple little mistakes in the pits. One of our newer drivers, Aiden, there was a small miscommunication. It wasn't his fault, where basically our engineer was saying we got to go, meaning like we need to pull the fuel so we can leave the box. But he heard go basically, so he went. Which it was really, a 50-50. You can't really blame him. You can't really totally blame everybody else, but it was just really unfortunate. Luckily, everybody was safe. Bill got sprayed with some fuel. So did a bunch of our crew, but we were very lucky there was no fire and we could repair the fuel rig. And we had to serve a penalty for that, which serves us right in a way. We always ended up 1 lap down, but we lost a series of laps during the race because of a few things. We had that. I was sleeping. I forget what exactly happened, but there was a drive-through in the middle of the night because we hit a Ferrari and spun him around.
I think it was Bill hit him.
Yeah, that's possible. And then so we then went another lap down, basically got a lap back. So we kept going like 2 laps down and then getting 1 back. Then in the morning, we had an off, packed the radiator with grass, which cost us a lot of time, almost a lap. And then we had another flat tire, or 1 flat tire, just after that incident where we had to obviously come in, put a new right rear on, and then we lost a lap there. In another sequence of yellows, we got another lap back, but we ended 1 lap down. So again, I think we weren't going to be able to fight the Mercedes or the Ferrari during the day. The Ferrari was probably the strongest car of the whole race. So if I could guess, our maximum would have been like P4, maybe P3 if we were a bit lucky. To finish P6, of 20-something cars after 24 hours, there's nothing wrong with that. We finished P6 last year as well, so it's a little bit annoying. You obviously want to do better, but it's a great way to start the year, and it's good points. There's obviously there's plenty of points up for grabs the rest of the season, but to start off on a pretty good note is good. Our M6 was flawless the whole time. I think mechanically and as far as the car goes, we had, the best, most reliable car we've ever had. didn't miss a beat the whole time, even though we were abusing
Yeah.
using it as much as we could. So yeah, it was an encouraging race, and I think our driver lineup was really solid. And we've got Aiden Reed with us for the endurance races, and he was definitely very quick. He learned fast. There was a lot of things that were new to him that he didn't know, but you can't almost teach speed in a way, and he was definitely very quick. So that bodes well for Sebring and the rest of the year. So looking forward to hopefully some better finishes going forward.
So what's the 24-hour race like for a driver? So how do you find the time to get a little bit of shut-eye, and how?
Yeah, it's quite difficult. So I guess in my situation, I started the race, and the way the yellows worked out, I did close to 3 hours in the car. So when you get out, you're pretty tired, and the last thing you're thinking about is driving again, but you have to prepare yourself to do so. For me, I get out and I normally eat something right away, like a small meal of pasta, chicken, some substance with some protein.
Right.
And then I was having a little issue with my back because the day before, the 24 was our GT4 race in GS. And the seat that I sit in is quite big relative to what I need. So I was moving around a little bit. So I ended up tweaking my back. So anyway, long story short, I was going to the BMW physio, which is great that there's somebody on hand that can help, if you have a little cramp or if you need a massage or, some icy hot, any of that stuff. So basically I would get out, eat something, go see the physio. And then by the time you're done with all that, an hour's passed and you're probably back in the car in about 3 hours. So I always we have an RV at the track that we all share and kind of sleep in shifts, or try to. So I at least just try to save energy, lay down. You try to sleep at some point in the night. After the first stint, you're probably not ready because it's still daylight. But just try to conserve as much energy. Don't be on your phone, stay focused in that regard. And then, for your next stint, you're trying to hydrate, make sure you have enough food in you to have enough energy to go again. And we're typically in this race doing double stints is pretty common. So you'll do basically 2 hours in the car and have something like hopefully 6 hours off. It usually doesn't work like that at all.
Yeah.
Because we've got 4 drivers, but typically you get 4 hours off. So it's definitely a lot. And if you can sleep, that's great. This year, I didn't really have the stints line up to where I could sleep really well. I think maybe collectively I slept maybe an hour, but it's broken sleep. Yeah, it's not great. So luckily adrenaline's a great thing and it keeps you going, especially when you first get back in the car. But it's definitely tiring at the end of the race for whatever reason, maybe because I was having a little back issue. I was the most worn out I had been after any 24. So it's definitely a test of endurance. It's no joke for sure.
So what was the crash like on Monday? You just completely exhausted?
Yeah, I remember normally like we go for dinner and have a couple of drinks with the crew just to celebrate the achievement and whatever. And after this one, I remember we left the track at 5:36. I went and had some tacos with Will, and I was like, I'm going to bed now. I think I fell asleep at 8 p.m. and I woke up the next day at 10 a.m. So I slept a good 12 hours at least. And yeah, I'm still a little, they call it the Rolex 24 hangover. I'm still not 100% back to normal, I guess. It's still a little tired. And the biggest thing I think is you're so focused mentally and physically for so long that it really wears out your senses. Like your eyes get tired and, you just feel a little foggy.
Right.
Just it's important to hydrate and get as much sleep as you can to get yourself going again. But yeah, it definitely takes longer than normal to get over this race.
All right. So let's wind it all the way back. How did you get involved in racing? I know there was a football injury, I think.
Yeah, it's a complicated story. So my dad always was involved in motorsport as a hobby in the SCCA, and he was what's called an autocrosser. I'm sure you guys are all familiar with that.
Yep.
So when I was growing up, I would always go travel to autocross events with him in the SCCA. And when I was 8, I could start doing that in a go-kart myself. So I started by autocrossing. I did that for a long time, for 4 or 5 years. And basically at the point where I turned 12, 13 years old, I kind of got too big and heavy for karting. And then I went and kind of focused more on football and baseball. So I didn't really race go-karts like the normal young racing driver does. I just autocrossed. And then basically played football and baseball seriously from the time I was like 12 to 14. Then when I was 14, I had a really bad leg injury where I broke my tibia, my fibula, some bones in my ankle, tore my ACL, LCL, PCL, and then I have permanent nerve damage in my leg. So pretty bad injury. I couldn't play football anymore. And then fast forward to when I was sort of at the end of my rehab, I made a deal with my dad to where he would send me to Skip Barber racing school. But after I got straight A's for 2 marking periods in high school. So I had to get on the books a little bit, but I did it. And I actually, funny enough, I'm from New Jersey originally. My first racetrack or car I drove was a Mazda MX-5 at Laguna. So Laguna Seca was the first track I ever drove, which is kind of funny because it's pretty much the furthest from my house.
Exactly.
But I started in that. I kind of took to it pretty well, I guess. I had a lot of experience in karting. I also played a lot of video games, racing video games, a little bit of iRacing at the time, which I've gotten a lot more serious with now. It's my simulator in the background. I don't know if you can see it, but anyway.
I see a little bit of it. Yeah. Sweet.
Yeah. So I was into racing video games. So I knew tracks, I knew cars, I knew basic stuff. And yeah, I got into the Mazda MX-5 stuff. My first race, I guess, was in my dad's SCCA Honda CRX. And then I went back to the Skip Barber system where they had, at the time, unfortunately, it's not there anymore, but they had a scholarship system. As you guys all know, racing costs a lot of money, but at the time, Skip Barber would basically, you could enter for very little money in the grand scheme of things. But if you won, they gave you scholarships to go to the next level. So I started at like the bottom level in the regional series, did a couple of races, and then you could basically advance. And through their great system, I won something like $400,000 in scholarship to keep my racing going. Wow. And I went from Skip Barber to Mazda MX-5 Cup. Basically, at the end of the Skip Barber ladder, there's a Mazda scholarship that you win at the time, which still sort of exists in a way. It's very different now, but they pay for your MX-5 Cup racing, which I did in 2016. 2017, I did a little bit of Continental Tire Sports Car Challenge, which is now Michelin Pilot Challenge. It was a little bit different back then in Street Tuner. And then from there, I got a break through people that I knew from Mazda to race for a team in LMP3 in IMSA in Prototype Challenge in a Ligier. So I did some races there. The team owner was going to go GTD racing the next year. So along with 2 other guys and the team owner, we ran GTD in 2018 in a Mercedes. And then I kind of got introduced to Will in a strange way.
It should be good.
Yeah, my good friend and teammate now, Vin Barletta, was buying a car from Will. And I was coaching him at the time. And basically he said, "Hey, I'm going to get this car. Can you just drive it for me and make sure it's all cool and just shake it down? They'll bring the car to Watkins Glen." So basically the Turner guys brought a Z4 GT3 to Watkins Glen. I got to drive it. And that was awesome. Didn't think much of it. And then I was going back to racing. I was racing with another gentleman in LMP3 at the time. So I kept doing that. And then I got a call from Will, basically like he had some stuff fall through. He needed a driver to drive with Bill in 2018. And then it's obviously a more complicated story, but long story short, that's how we kind of got hooked up. And since then I started racing with Vin and GS with Will, and we've been racing GTD, which is kind of what I've always dreamed of doing. I always dreamed of racing at the highest level in North America and to race in WeatherTech with obviously Bill, who's now or has always been a legend in the sport, and now the winningest driver in IMSA history. It's kind of been a surreal.
Thanks to you too.
Yeah, I guess that was a very small part of
A
it.
little bit of it.
The last whatever we have together, 5, 6 win, I don't even know at this point. Yeah, it's cool to be a small part of that, and it's been I have to pinch myself sometimes, a surreal couple of years to this point, and now we're going to fight for the championship again. Hopefully, we have a little better shot at it this year from the BOP side of things. But yeah, it's been a great journey for myself personally, and got to meet a lot of great people like you guys at different racetracks, big BMW fans. I've become a big BMW fan myself. To be honest, never was one growing up so much, but it's a really cool culture, and cool to see all the support that we get from people like all you guys. So it's been a cool journey.
Great. So let's talk about Bill. What was the feeling like when you found out I'm going to be Bill Auberlen's teammate? How is this possible?
Yeah, it's funny because so yeah, I grew up in New Jersey, which is near my home track is Lime Rock in Connecticut. So growing up, I was a big fan of Corvette racing. I don't know why necessarily. I had some friends that my dad knew from the SCCA that worked at Pratt & Miller. Anyway, so I was always a Corvette fan, but I always saw the BMWs, and I knew who Bill Auberlen was, and I remember watching him. And I actually remember watching him in Turner cars, specifically in like GS and Continental Tire Challenge and the Grand Am series. But I also watched him in ALMS, and I knew who he was. And at the time, I was such a fan that I always dreamed of being a race car driver, but I saw these guys as, you know, they're not like me. They're, I don't know, they're barely human type thing. You know, you never think you're going to be, you know, on the same level or even talking to them. But it's been a funny experience going from that state as a kid who was a fan watching on the hill at Lime Rock to all of a sudden in 2018, they say you're going to drive with Bill Auberlen, who's at the time a few wins away from tying Scott Pruitt for the most wins. And this is a guy you've been watching on TV since, you know, you can really remember. Some of my earliest memories are actually, as a kid, I would lie to my mom when like Le Mans or the Daytona 24 was on. I would say I'm going to bed. I would go to bed. She would go to bed. Then I would go back downstairs and watch, you know, Daytona, and she'd notice me on the couch in the morning, and I'd get in trouble. But anyway, I grew up, you know, idolizing these great drivers and just wanting to do that. And then come 2018, you're almost like wake up from a dream, and now, you know, you're driving with Bill Auberlen. You become really good friends with him, and he's just a guy. And, you know, it's a surreal kind of full circle experience.
It is. So let's talk about Turner. So was there a taco dinner initiation for you when you joined the team?
Well, you always, and I get this question a lot. People are always like, what's the deal with the tacos? And I guess in a way, yeah, but the story, and Will tell you the same thing. It all stems from the fact that at every racetrack in North America, at least, or pretty much anywhere, there's always a Mexican restaurant.
Sure.
And generally, like I personally, maybe there is one out there, I've never had a bad meal at a Mexican restaurant. You can always get something that you kind of like and it tastes good and whatever. So for the team, it started as, you know, they all liked Mexican, and there was always a Mexican restaurant in Mid-Ohio or near Laguna or near Coda or near wherever, Watkins Glen. So they started doing that. And then Jay, who's kind of the marketing guy for Turner, who was more involved in recent years, but since started his own business and just had a little baby girl, but he's still around. He and Will and some other people kind of decided, well, everybody likes tacos and Mexican so much, let's kind of make a thing out of it. So before my time with the team, they put tacos on the side of the car, and they make taco shirts, and, you know, Will's got a taco stick. Exactly. Will's got a taco sticker on his phone. But people really started loving it, and it grew the Turner social media to, you know, what it is now. And if you look, I think, and I'm obviously very biased, as we all probably are, but I think, you know, Turner and what they do with interacting with fans and social media is one of the most unique and cool things about the team. And obviously we're very serious, and everybody takes everything very seriously, but there's also a lot of fun being had, and it's not dry. So the taco thing was a cool way to interact with people. Fans of the race team will, you know, tweet a photo of them having tacos, or Taco Tuesday, or winner taco dinner type thing. So it's not, there's no like super inside joke or anything. People are always fishing for that, but yeah, it's just kind of a cool thing that turned into a bit of a way to interact with social media and fans and kind of just differentiate the team as far as I can tell. I didn't invent the idea. I wish I did, but it's been pretty cool.
So what's your go-to taco meat?
That's a tough one. It's got to be pastor tacos, I think.
Good.
So Will has this thing where he's a very authentic taco guy. So the way an American taco is sometimes done is a little bit artificial, where they put a lot of stuff on it.
Yep.
So normally when we go for tacos, I just mimic the order that Will gets, and it's normally pastor tacos, which is pretty simple. It's obviously pork and some other stuff with like a little bit of pineapple, onion, cilantro, but very simple, not with a bunch of other stuff on it. Normally that. They definitely get involved with some queso and stuff like that. And for them, maybe not for me on race weekends, but there's usually some tequila flying around. So it's always a good time. And it's a bit of a team bonding experience where we just all assume that we're going to go meet for tacos at some point during a race weekend. So it's, generally El Pastor.
Yeah, there was a little crotch belt action on Twitter while you guys were racing on Daytona. And something came up about some guy being a student of yours at Skip Barber. And I think drinking tequila at age 18 or something. And then Crossbelt said, his mom's going to get mad. Like you're the ticket out of town.
Yeah, that was funny. It's hard to keep up with the crotch belt during a race. He is definitely, I don't know if it's a he or she, but him itself is a very busy individual. I didn't remember that specific instance, honestly, but I can remember typically when after I raced for Skip Barber, they asked me to come in, basically coach for them. So when I turned 18, I started working for them, and it was a good way to earn money. And I traveled to different tracks, and it was a good time. But occasionally they used to do a dinner afterwards, and it's definitely possible that a lot of times what would happen, honestly, is people would assume that I was above 21 and they would just buy me a drink at dinner and I would just drink.
You wouldn't turn it down.
No.
But if your mom sees this, you can neither confirm nor deny that happened.
She definitely was. My parents growing up were always, they never really forbid me from doing anything. They just wanted me to do it safely. So I was allowed to even drink in high school as long as I was responsible about it. So I've never actually, I don't know if this is TMI or not, but gotten sick from drinking or anything like that. So I've never gone and done anything too stupid. So I think she would approve.
Good. So let's talk about you racing the M4 GT4 and the GT3 in the same weekend. How do you prepare yourself for switching between cars? Because obviously they're quite different.
Yeah, it's something that gets easier over time. Initially, I would say it's almost easier to jump in the M6 because it's faster. It's not necessarily easier to go faster right away because you have to extract more out of the car and yourself physically. You're going a lot faster. The forces are higher. Mm-hmm. But the GT4 car is so much slower that when you go back from the M6 to the M4, you'll almost always overdrive it in some regard. But now the preparation is, I've driven both at most tracks we go to now. So I have kind of a switch I almost turn within myself to know, okay, I need to do this with this car. This car likes this, and so on. It definitely took a little bit to get used to, just in terms of the speed you can carry and how you drive the car. But in terms of preparation, it's funny, your lines don't really change. Your braking points are almost similar, but just the way you arrive at the corner and how the car feels in the middle of the corner is what feels very different. So at this point now, it's a very easy transition for me, and Bill and I have gotten used to doing that. But for somebody that would be new to it, it would just take a while to wrap your head around, okay, I'm entering this corner at 125 in the M6 and I'm doing it at 90 in the M4. the speed at which things approach and that are happening and how quickly the car reacts is the biggest difference.
Right. Let's talk about you last year driving 2 cars in one race and then finishing on the podium twice.
Yeah.
So how does that feel?
Yeah, that was an awesome experience. I guess it would make sense to explain how that all came about. Will initially had 2 other drivers that were going to be in the 95 GS car that were basically funding that effort, and they were supposed to run the full season. I think, I don't know the full detail, but some sponsorship on their side fell through.
Yeah,
anyway,
I think you're talking about Aurora Strauss and Connor Bloom.
Yeah, exactly. So Will was basically left with an empty car, and he already brought on all this crew to basically take care of the car. So behind the scenes, with some help of others, they basically decided to put Bill and I in one car, and I was already going to drive the other car with Vin. So they asked me if I would do it, and I said, yeah, I think it would be awesome and hilarious, and I don't think many people have done it before, and it's a great opportunity for me to get more track time. And I mean, it might tire me out a little bit more, but yeah, I'm game. So we started that at Sebring, I think. I'm pretty sure, yeah. And it was honestly supposed to be a one race thing for a while, like pretty much the whole time, until we realized that we could maybe do a double podium. And then, there was some interest in other people driving the car. But anyway, long story short, the way it all worked out, they decided it was kind of race by race, but it was going pretty well. We were actually doing well in the points at the time. So we thought, we basically, Bill and I missed a race because we missed Daytona in that car, but maybe we could try to win the championship. So the way it would work is I would qualify and start the 95 car, and at which point we were going to pit to change drivers. We'd do the stop in 95. I would get out of 95, kind of go to the other pit box, and the 96 with Vin in it was either coming in the pits to change drivers, or he was going to pit in like a lap or two. So I'd basically do the whole race split between 2 cars, which was really good fun. It was kind of cool and an advantage in one way because I knew what the track was like already. I knew kind of the condition of everything. The 2 M4s, even though they're identical, they feel slightly different. I'm sitting in a different position in both of them. So they actually feel a little different, but I know, okay, the track's in this condition. I know what the tire's going to want right away. So I almost had a leg up on the guys that were finishing the race in the other cars because I knew what to expect already. So it was a cool experience. A couple of times we had really good results as a team with both cars, but VIR was obviously the best. In the 95, I shared with Bill. I was leading the first stint, pitted from the lead, got out, and basically Bill was leading the whole time in his stint. And then I got into the 96 car. We were kind of down the order and somewhere like 12th to 15th. I forget exactly. We got a few yellows, passed some cars. We had a really good car that day in both cars. The M4 was super competitive there, and we pretty much nailed the setup. So we had a very racy car, very raceable car. And the way it was falling towards the end is basically with something like 20 minutes to go, I had just passed for basically the podium. I was kind of racing 2 cars hard for third, second. There was 1 car off strategy, which was a Mustang, but it looked clear that we were going to basically secure kind of a double podium in a way. And yeah, the way it worked out with basically Bill had enough of a lead at the time. We were very close together, probably within 5 car lengths. He cleared this car that came out of the pits. I didn't. I had to race him into turn 1. That Mustang kind of pushed me off, and it was some kind of rough racing. Then a Mercedes came in the mix. Anyway, there was basically a 3-car battle for second that was probably a little bit too aggressive, you could say. But yeah, we ended up coming away with a double podium, which was cool. So, the 95 won the race. So we were first and third in the same race, which is really cool, and something that has only been done a handful of times in IMSA. And in recent years, as things have gotten really competitive, it's not been done, and probably getting more and more difficult to do as things get more competitive. So it's a cool bucket list thing to do for the team. I think it was big. It got Will and everybody a lot of press and a lot of interest in our program. So it was, yeah, it was great to be a part of. And that weekend in general was amazing. We won GTD as well, which worked out to be the day before. It was kind of a backwards weekend where that race was first. We won that race, pretty much led most of it. And yeah, Bill got his record-breaking win. So you pretty much couldn't have written a better race weekend. I don't know if I'll be able to top that one. It was
I think
cool to be a part of.
Yeah, the only way you can beat that weekend is have a race long enough where you drive 3 cars in one race.
Yeah, we'd have to win
podium all 3.
Yeah, we'd have to win like a massive endurance race or Le Mans or something to even come close to that. But yeah, to basically, I mean, I guess you could say we swept the weekend in a way and had every car on the podium. So it was a surreal experience and something I'm super grateful to have been a small part in.
All right, so I'm just going to ask you a few questions. I'm going to open up the rest of the guys here watching and let them ask some questions. So what have been your favorite 3 tracks that you've driven so far?
Yeah, it's a tough one. I have a list of a lot of them that I would say they're all my favorite. I don't have one that's like an overarching favorite, but I would say Mosport in Canada. Mm-hmm. It's tough to narrow them down. I could definitely give you 5, but Mosport.
Go ahead, go 5.
Okay, cool. Mosport, Road Atlanta, Road America, VIR, and Watkins Glen, probably.
Nice.
Laguna's honestly in there too. It's very sentimental to me because I've actually driven that track almost the most out of any racetrack. It's I had a lot of wins there early in my career in Mazda MX-5 Cup stuff, and the M6 is honestly not the best GTD car there, but we had a good race there last year, and I always really like the track, the way it flows. I love the area. I love going to Monterey. But when you drive like a big, fast, high horsepower GT car at those 5 I mentioned, especially Watkins Glen, Mosport, fast, high speed tracks, there's not, there's kind of no feeling like it. So I think all the tracks we go to on the MC schedule are pretty amazing. Like Daytona is not the best track to drive in the world, but just because of the race and what it is, it's amazing. Sebring is amazing. We're going to, pretty much all the great tracks in North America. So it's hard to have a favorite, and it's also hard to dislike a certain track.
Right. How about bucket list tracks you want to drive as a race car driver? Yeah,
a lot of them are European because I haven't done too much in Europe. For sure, the Nürburgring. I'd really love to do the Nürburgring 24-hour, and BMW has a big presence there, so it would be great to do that. Le Mans, which I've been close to going once or twice, but just to do, they have a couple of different races there that support the 24-hour, or obviously to do the 24-hour. That's a huge bucket list.
Right.
Spa is another one as well in Belgium. You could list off a few more. Monza, all the really historic tracks, European tracks. Silverstone, even in the UK. I've pretty much been to all of the ones in North America. All the major ones, I'm trying to think, apart from maybe like the Montreal F1 circuit, which would be a cool track to drive as well. But any of the old school, high commitment, technical tracks that just produce great racing, Nürburgring, Spa, and Le Mans, I think is hard to beat in terms of European tracks. But yeah, I would say those 3.
All right, so now I'm going to let it open to other questions. So I had a couple in the chat that already posted questions here. So Craig wants to know, during the endurance races, or even maybe from the sprint races, do you or other racers run at 100% or keep a little bit in reserve for the final few laps or something like that?
Yeah, it's a good question. There's a little bit of a different mindset, but to be honest with you, when the green flag drops, you're pretty much running flat out the whole time. Racing used to be more about kind of saving your equipment to the end. But the cars now are so advanced and so reliable generally that you can pretty much push them as hard as you want the whole time. And if they break, they were going to break anyway. So in the Daytona 24 hour, for example, I, at least myself, try to take less risk at the start of the race, give people a bit more room. You're not dive bombing people or you're not in such a big hurry to make a massive move, but at the same time, you're pushing quite hard and driving fast. It's a little bit different than the last 2 hours of the race, but you're still pretty much on it. In the sprint races we do, they're still long enough. The shortest one is 100 minutes, but they're normally 2 hours and 40 minutes. They're still long enough to where, you don't want to end your race in the first corner. Just because you made a pass in the first turn really aggressively against somebody doesn't mean you're going to finish there. And there's a lot of other variables. So it's really aggressive and really hard racing. But to be honest, from the driver's seat, not a whole lot changes. And people are racing you pretty much the same in every situation.
All right, we got a couple more here. One question to you was about racing last year with basically no one in the stands. Did that affect the team and the racers?
It doesn't affect how we operate as a team. It doesn't affect our processes, but it's definitely a bummer. I have a special appreciation for it because I'm not too far removed from being a young kid that was a fan. So I know how much more exciting it is to go watch a race in person than it is on TV, because I used to, always be waiting for July when I could go watch ALMS at Lime Rock or go to Watkins Glen and watch Grand Am or whatever, so it's a bummer. You don't get the same interaction. It doesn't, also on the flip side of that, as a driver, it doesn't feel like as big of a stage in a way. Like, you put pressure on yourself and you know that it's a big deal and you have to perform, but when you're at Sebring for the 12 hour and there's 300,000 people there, you feel like it's a different experience. And you don't get to interact with the people that are supporting you. And the reason why racing exists is for the fans and for manufacturers to interact with people and all that kind of stuff. So it definitely takes an element of that away. And I was still grateful to go back racing and do what I love, but it wasn't the same at all, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it does. All right. So the other question here from Alexi was, is the Reggie Shark sticker a super inside joke?
The Reggie, say that again.
It's Reggie Shark sticker.
Oh.
I don't know what he's referring to either.
Yeah, that's, to be honest, it's such an inside joke. I don't even know about it, except for the fact that I know that it exists. I'd have to ask the tall boss on that one.
Yeah, so maybe we can save it for Laguna.
Yeah, we should.
We're permitted there.
That's a good garage tour question for sure.
Yeah. All right, and then another one from Alexi. What's your favorite modern BMW that people can buy and drive on the street?
That's tough as well. Again, like when I was growing up, I knew what BMWs were. I knew they were really nice, and I always liked. I loved E46 M3s, but I never really knew much about BMWs. But recently, I've gotten to drive a lot of cool ones through work that I've done at Monticello Motor Club, where they have BMWs, and just driving them in general. But two cars that really surprise me and stand out when you drive them is the new M5 and the new M8, because realistically, like for the street, it's really hard to get a car that's actually faster physically than those cars. Like, especially after Turner gets her hands on it and maybe tunes it a little bit more. Like I drove an M5 and we were on it's a place in Connecticut called Thompson Motor Speedway. It's a little road course, basically. It's not like a big, well-known track, but there was a guy that had a Lamborghini Huracan there, a friend of a friend. And we went like privately on the front stretch and did a drag race between an M5 and a Lamborghini Huracan Super Performante or something. Yeah, like really long name. And the M5 totally smokes it to like 100 miles an hour, and you could have your entire family in the car. So to me, it's insane how comfortable the car is, how like user-friendly it is, how practical it is, but also how freaking fast it is too. So that's an eye-opening experience to me. I think the newer cars are a little bit different than like your E46 M3. The driving experience is different, but the performance of them is totally out of control. So I would say those two. And then I also got to drive an X7 I think it's
the M50i.
The M50i.
Yeah.
And that's like, that's, like the ultimate family car pretty much. It's as nice as any big SUV I've ever seen, including they have that new Rolls Royce one or whatever, or any Porsche Macan Cayenne. It's crazy, and it's also fast, like faster than most cars.
Yeah, it handles really well. I did get to autocross the X7 M50i.
Yeah,
and it was just crazy. It was so planted.
Yeah, and it's so comfortable, and I mean, like I would totally have one of those any day if I could. But yeah, the cars they're putting out these days are pretty insane. I got to see the new M5 CS in person at Daytona as well.
Ooh.
And that thing looks cool. I think it's a good step because to me the M5 before looked a little bit too similar to a 5 Series, but this definitely looks a little bit edgier and has more features just physically, like in terms of looks that you would expect from an M5. So
plus those seats.
Yeah, there's a lot of cool stuff there. I haven't seen an M4 or M3, the new one, in person, but it's growing on me. Everybody was a little bit skeptical of the grille, but it's starting to grow on me in certain colors. I think it's a really sharp looking car.
Yeah, and I think should we be at Laguna, you could come by the corral. Should we have one? I'm sure you'll find one there.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Or two.
Yeah.
All right, got another question here from Tom. It says, outside of tacos and tequila, how intense is fitness and diet these days for you?
Yeah, it's a big thing. And I guess for me personally, I've always, since my injury, struggled with that because I'm a little bit limited with my leg. And I also, when I was playing football, I was in really good shape, but I gained about 80 pounds when I was hurt. So I was basically like 15 years old and nearly 300 pounds. And that doesn't totally work for being a race car driver. So since I was able to, I've been kind of losing all that weight, and I'm down to a kind of a fighting weight now, but I always personally struggle with that. I can look at a pizza and gain 5 pounds, which is not great for race driving. And I'm generally taller than most drivers as well. So for me, I try to be as small and light as I can be. So that's one side of things. From the diet, I've learned how to make healthy food kind of taste good. And almost on the race weekends, it's almost like a little bit of a cheat meal situation because you can work it off, but we're still eating healthy. Like tacos aren't super unhealthy, and we'll have a steak dinner or whatever, but you definitely have to watch it. And you'll notice when you eat a bad meal the next day, you don't feel quite as good, and you're not, you want to be at peak performance. As far as the fitness goes, my big thing is I build up a lot of it in the off season. So the off season was short this year, but from basically November until right before Daytona, I was training really aggressively, like 4 times a week, building my fitness back up. I had a crash last year. We had a brake failure, and I dislocated my knee actually, so that kind of put me back a little bit.
I do remember that crash.
Yeah, so I fell behind. Yeah, I fell behind a little bit on the fitness side of things. So I was building that back up over the off season. So it's really a full-time job. What makes it difficult, especially last year, the races were really close together because of COVID.
Mm-hmm.
So there was really no time to rest, which made training difficult, finding time to train difficult. So I fell behind on that a little bit and had to kind of play catch up. But that's one of my personal goals this year, is to stay a little bit more on top of the training, try to train 3 times a week, keep the fitness up and get my weight down a little bit more. But it's probably my biggest, I don't know if struggle is the right word, but it's always my biggest challenge is my weight and not necessarily the fitness, but more or less the weight.
Does anyone else have any other questions for Robby before we can let him go? Because he is on East Coast time.
Oh, good. I guess you guys are, a couple hours different.
3 hours. Yep. All right. I guess no one else got anything else. How about one last final question? One last final question. So your dream car garage, let's say 3 cars, what's it going to be?
Ooh, that's a tough one too. I think One would be a McLaren F1, the original. Yeah. And I guess, are these street cars or race cars? Because if it was a race car, I would say
it's
McLaren.
anything you want.
It's
your garage.
I would say the McLaren F1 Longtail that was raced at Le Mans, which, funny enough, Bill actually drove. But those things are insane, and they make the best sound on the planet. But I guess race cars are too complicated, so we'll stick to street cars. So I'd say McLaren F1. I could tell you 1,000 race cars that I want, but I have a weird thing for Ferrari F12 TDFs. It's that front engine V12 Ferrari kind of V12s. That would be something. If I had one more choice, it's definitely a tough one. I mean, if I was going to pick a car right now that I could just have every day as a practical,
your daily.
My daily would be a new M8 competition Grand Coupe.
Not bad.
I've never, to this day, found a car that I've liked as much as that. It's got 4 doors, it's usable, it's really fast, it looks cool. So I would probably have 2 crazy, unreliable, impractical spaceship cars, and then the M8 where I would just drive that most of the time.
All right, we did get one last question in. So Tom's asking about you and outside work. Are you fully dedicated racer, or do you have something else going on too? Because I know you have an engineering degree from Auburn, I want to say. Is that right?
Yeah, I'm still in the process of all the school stuff. So yeah, that's a loaded question as well. I am in school. I'm 3 years through a mechanical engineering degree from Auburn. At the time, I guess, let's think, 2018-ish, when I was kind of on my last year, I got so busy with racing and coaching and traveling, I was kind of only going to school on Tuesdays, because I would leave on Wednesday, race Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, fly home Sunday or Monday, basically sleep all day Monday because I was exhausted, then go to class on Tuesday. So it wasn't a sustainable situation. So I put that on hold a little bit. I started taking online classes where I'm doing a business administration degree. So that gives me a bit more freedom to work on stuff when I can. So my goal is to finish both degrees at some point. So yeah, I'm still doing school. I also do a lot of driver coaching, which is becoming less and less now as my racing's getting more. So I coach Vin Barletta, who I race in GS with. I have for a few years, and now we're racing together. We're also going to announce another program that'll be super cool, and probably this week, where I'm going to team up with my teammate Michael Diner again from last year in a little different program situation that I think we'll all enjoy. Might be slightly familiar.
The GT4 America, I'm guessing?
It's going to be GT3, but
okay.
I'm probably spoiling it a little bit too soon. But
all right, we'll have to wait then.
Keep it between all of us for like a week or so. But yeah, that'll be cool. And then I do some private driver coaching, as well as I work at some country club racetracks like Monticello Motor Club and the Concourse Club here in Miami. So yeah, pretty much full time in the racing industry, mainly driving, a little bit of coaching, and then duties as a student. I have a small kind of startup situation I'm involved with in the business world that's also kind of racing related.
Nice.
So I definitely keep busy, sometimes way too busy. I either have some downtime like in the off season where I had plenty of time to do everything, and then I got back from Daytona and now I've been crazy busy. But yeah, it's good. I like to stay busy, and definitely racing is my main focus, but try to be well-rounded, I guess, in life.
Right. So I guess that'll about wrap it up. So you can follow Robby on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. I think is it Foley Racing RFR?
Yeah, it's kind of a weird name, but when I went to get an Instagram, all the ones I wanted were taken. So you can, just search for my name, Robby Foley, or it's Foley Racing RFR, on Instagram, Twitter, or just my personal one on Robby Foley on Facebook. I don't really use my racing page. I just find it's better to do the personal one. So yeah, you can find me there.
All right. Yeah. So we'll make this a YouTube video. So I'll drop the links to your social media stuff in the description of the video as well.
Sweet.
But Robby, can't thank you enough for doing this.
Yeah, no worries. Hopefully we get to see you guys at Laguna later in the year. Hopefully the world is in a better state then, and
exactly.
We'll see you then.
I guess we'll look forward to seeing your parents at the racetrack too, because they're great folks.
Yeah, hopefully they'll be there as well.
All right. Thanks again, Robby, and thank you everyone for tuning in.
Thanks, guys. Yeah, have a good night. Take it easy.
Bye-bye.
Bye.